The best way to take revenge on someone is to improve yourself and become a better person than them, and then reject them. Welcome to the story of a petty 10-year-old. Masaume Makabe is an exceptional student with excelling grades, a handsome appearance, and an incredible body for all of the 3 scenes they show it in, until it just becomes cheaper to animate him as a normal high schooler. But behind this perfect facade lies the mentality of a sulking toddler, Masamune's excellence originating only from his desire to take revenge on Aragaki Aki, a childhood crush of his. At the tender age of 10 years old, he was rejected brutally, not only being turned down romantically, but also derided and given the nickname Piggy. And from that point forward, Masamune worked harder than everybody else for the sake of sweet vengeance, not only becoming the best version of himself, but also continually transferring schools to find the girl that once rejected him. Now, I think we can all learn a few lessons from this gem of wisdom. Firstly, if a girl rejects you, clearly it's entirely her fault and deserves punishment. Secondly, children should be held entirely accountable for mean comments they make, even 8 years later. Because, people don't change as they grow up. And last of all, that self-improvement should only be done for the sake of beating someone. I mean, it's truly a gem of philosophy, this. And so, one fateful day, 8 years after the incident, Masamune is just doing his usual thing, checking himself out in a shop window on the way to his new school, when he overhears some interesting news. A young man on the way to try his luck confessing to the cruel princess, a girl famous for savagely and publicly rejecting suitors she doesn't like by giving them demeaning names. Sound familiar? Well, it should, because this is Aragaki Aki's school. And Masamune puts his plan into action immediately. Using his looks and his seemingly good-natured personality, he immediately tries to get closer to her. Now, I wouldn't really know because I've never spoken to a real woman in my life, but it seems quite slow in progress, partly because she hates all men. Of course, it can be partly attributed to the fact that his 8-year-in-the-making plan is just, hey, what if I tried talking to her? Thankfully, though, his actions have caught the eye of Aki's maid, and the best girl in the whole show, one Yoshino Kawai. So as it turns out, Aki's horrible not only to her suitors, but also to her servants. Yoshino has been serving Aki since birth, fulfilling whatever needs she had, but in return, Aki's always been cold and scornful, all of the time. And so, Yoshino offers to help Masamune, having recognized him as Piggy and guessing his intentions. So, up until this point, the author's done an excellent job of setting up the villain of the show. Aki is unpleasant in every single interaction she's had with, well, anyone. You really can't help but just dislike her, and so the revenge plot feels kind of okay, even if it is slightly unjustified and also Masamune is a narcissistic, selfish prick to his family. With Yoshino's help, he exploits Aki's insecurity about the amount of food she eats due to a health condition in order to get close to her, using also just a little bit of blackmail. Again, incredibly normal things to do when you want to date somebody. But you see, the issue here, beyond the morality and hypocrisy with pretty much everything Masamune does, is that Aki is actually the heroine. So at this point, the author backtracks in order to try and salvage our impressions of Aki. They share that actually, it wasn't Aki who rejected Masamune that night, it was Yoshino. Because, instead of being horrible, calling somebody a mean name, actually, she was just, systematically cruel to a child whose only actions had been to try and please her whole life. Justifiably a bit miffed, Yoshino took Aki's place one night and rejected Masamune from behind a curtain, because, actually, Aki had actually liked Masamune when he was chubby. This cartoon-level plot backtrack clearly must have redeemed Aki entirely in the author's eyes, because they have Masamune begin to fall for Aki again, with her also slowly getting closer to him. Not exactly the greatest plot, because, you're already led to hate Aki by this point, but it's acceptable, right? Well, that's what you'd think, but no, because out of the blue, this fucker shows up. A grown-up version of younger Masamune. You might be thinking, what the fuck? Am I watching anime or the latest episode of Scooby-Doo? Because I was confused too. Well, as it turns out, this is a cross-dressing girl impersonating Masamune in an attempt to get Aki to fall in love with her using an old faked engagement letter, which nobody checks or even vaguely contacts his family about, in order to get money from her family. Yeah, this actually happens. And it works. All things said and done, the author deserves credit where credit is due. It really takes balls to make the heroine of a romantic comedy not only the villain of the show, but also drop the main character in an instant near the end of the show abruptly and become enamored with another dude. Definitely one of the most unexpected twists I've ever seen in a show. But regardless, where could the show go on from here? I mean, you've just dropped the bombshell. Well, the twists aren't over, because as it turns out, it goes absolutely fucking nowhere. This happens on the second to last episode, and then you get a random pool party episode. So you get blue balled yet again. And of course, any drama or mystery about who he ends up with or how the whole show goes down is instantly eliminated using the OVA. The marketing geniuses at Silver Link Animation Studios decided that the best way to retain audience interest and remind people who the heroine is supposed to be is to spoil the ending. Because it's not like shipping is a massive source of free publicity or keeps people interested in sequels. Although, speaking of sequels, for all the shit I've given the author, they must know something because the second season has just been announced. Because despite the reviews are mal, the viewership is actually pretty high. Considering that I've read the manga, I've just got to say, and no spoilers, the author does not learn his lessons when it comes to making unlikable characters redeemed. He just kind of gives them a sob story and calls it character development. Also not a spoiler because they fucking spoiled it anyway. Why the fuck did Yoshino not win? I mean, she's probably the most logical person for him to end up with while still not being the biggest sack of shit on the planet. I hope they finish next season because if they don't, they'll be stretching the plot pretty fucking thin because there's not really much left from his like 2 arcs. But yeah. Anyway, check out my channels for more anime reviews, if you can even call them that. I mean, it's more like a rant at this point. But I post once every 2 weeks on Friday, or at least I try to. Right, see ya.